glad I got the easy job because I think this is going to be a more positive conversation. So I'm starting with Dean Peterisi, who will be Tony moving forward. So let's start with what was the goal behind the development of the Economic Forum?
Well, let me start off by, first of all, by thanking Dr. Hyder and Dr. Stevenson for the work they put into organizing the event today. And thanks to all of you for coming out. In higher education, we have a little bit of a reputation of taking a long time to do things. And when we first started talking about wanting to get a group together to talk about economic things, I think the initial thought was, okay, what time next year do we do this? And we said, no, we're talking a couple months from now. We got people energized around this, and it resulted in the event we have today. I'll tell you as well that when we first started planning the event, I don't know that I shared this with others in the team, but I was thinking, okay, if we can get 40 people to attend, that would be great. And maybe we'll be fortunate enough to get 75 people, was my stretch goal. And we wound up having well over 175 people registered to attend the event today. And I want to thank all of you for coming out. To get to the point of Jill's question, as Taylor alluded to, we have a lot of new leadership in the College of Business and Technology here at ETSU. In our college, we have 6 academic departments, 3 focused on business, 3 focused on technology. And of those 6 departments, 5 of them have new leadership this year. And we have a new dean, we have a new associate dean. And so we've been talking a lot about the future and things that we would like to see different in the future. And one of the goals that we have set that's very important to us is having the college be much more engaged in the external community. You know, sometimes there's been this separation where what happens on the college campus exists only there, and then the business community and the professional community is external to that. We don't want that to be the dynamic moving forward. And so one of the things that was a goal for today was you got to meet some of our faculty. You got to hear them talk about the work that they do, the research that they do, and clearly it's relevance to what's going on in the regional economic community. And so we want to do a lot more of that over time. We want to get our faculty out in the community, and then we want to also bring the community onto campus. And we're looking for ways to build that engagement. Bill Traynor talked about P&E. And I think a lot about P&E, but I think of those being different things, which is I think about partnership and I think about engagement. And those are the 2 things that we are really trying to emphasize as a college moving forward. And so the event today was intended to, if you will, wave a green flag and say, okay, this is the start of something that we hope to do a lot more of and what we want to do in terms of ramping up our involvement in the community. So we're looking for partners, we're looking for engagement, and I suspect we'll talk a lot more about that as this discussion evolves. It's one of the reasons that I'm excited to be sitting next to Scott Andrew. He has been such a friend of the university, such a friend of our college, a great partner to work with. And I would love to build the relationship that we have with Scott with more and more businesses and individuals in this region. I think if we can do that, that will be to our great mutual benefit and will help move the region forward economically as well as a number of other areas as well. So that's what we were hoping to do with the event today.
Thank you. And so that leads well into the next question for Scott. You have a set of businesses that you're operating in this region. Why did you choose here, and what attracted you to this area?
I'm from the mountains originally. I grew up in Asheville, North Carolina. And I've lived on the coast and we've lived on lakes for many years. And I think if you've lived in the mountains and lived on the water, sooner or later you got to make a choice. And I don't see myself living in Texas, which is a pretty good state, but it's pretty flat. It does have water. but we really, my wife and I came up here in 2017 to look at purchasing a factory. And we spent some time with a good friend of mine since the 5th grade, Jim Wilson, who at that time was the director at Eastman in global supply chain. And we were doing a lot of things in North Florida, and we just realized how much we love the mountains and how much we love, more importantly than the beauty of the mountains, the people. And I sit here in this room today, I got to see Joe Grandy, who I've known for about 30 years. I got to see Jenny Brock, who I met when we first moved to our first company here, BioPure. She came to the ribbon cutting. She was the mayor, and I was like, well, here's a strong Democrat and a strong Republican, and they're both business people, and they're both fun together, and they like each other, and they work together well. And to me, that was a little bit about what it's like. The Appalachian Highlands, it's a very rugged type people that decided to settle here and do what we've done here. Maybe we're a little bit behind in some ways because it's a tough place to stay. Not as much today as it was hundreds of years ago. But that attitude about life persists. There's a lot of people here on either side of the political spectrum that are self-reliant. They believe in taking a deep sense of personal responsibility. They don't make excuses. They help their neighbor. I mean, it's just a really good place to live beyond the natural beauty. So we knew after moving 9 times in 12 years, we wanted to be somewhere where we weren't ever going to move again and build that second half of life. And we've owned 52 companies in the last 30 years, a little over 20 through 4 umbrellas today. And once you decide you're going to be in a place permanently, you can let yourself loose. And I don't believe in luck, but I believe in timing. In this region, I know there's a lot of economic doom and gloom going on in here, but that kind of always happens. And Mark said it. It depends on how you're going to look at it and what position you're in and what you're going to do. Chaos is a place where good entrepreneurs find opportunity, even if some of the things they're doing you may not be doing as good as you want to do right here, but go find that place where you can do good in the chaos, because an equal amount of opportunity almost always exists no matter what the climate is. That's a big part of what America's all about. So we decided to make this our permanent home, and ETSU was timing was perfect. Dr. Nolan and Dean Pitarisi and a lot of the ETSU community, Dr. Bidwell, who's now a dean, they were so welcoming. I'd recently published a book about entrepreneurialism, so we got engaged with the university. Gary Mabry, somebody who was the president of the Chamber of Commerce over 20 years, if you make a key hire in a company like that and you ask him to introduce you to people in the region, you got to be careful, because he knew everybody in the region. And that was like a part-time job for me 4 years ago. Just spending time with Gary, getting to meet people. I remember, Will, when I first got to meet you, the banking community was just so embracing here. The business community was so embracing. The university was so embracing. I'll never forget it, the best business day of my life. David Golden was helping form the ETSU Research Corporation for ETSU, and he asked me what I thought about how that would form up. And I said, well, you're smarter than me, whatever you think is going to be better. But if I had an opportunity to look at something, it would be the Purdue Research Foundation, because I think they're the most entrepreneurial college in America. 1 in 25 students at Purdue gets their entrepreneurship certificate. And you're trying to pattern something successful. And within like 2 days, I get an email from Dr. Nancy Dishner, who works with the Niswonger Foundation. Would you like to hitch a ride on Scott's jet to go to Purdue and study the Research Foundation? And I was like, I got to read this again. And I just barely knew who Nancy was. And I was like, yes. Her exact words were hitch a ride. And that was so apropos for the kind of people that is here. And Scott and David had set it up for a handful of us from ETSU to spend a whole day. And Purdue set it up for the president, who was the former CFO of Eli Lilly, Brian Edelman, to teach us how to build that, or our own version of that here in Northeast Tennessee. And I thought, That'll be one of the biggest economic entrepreneurial impact development centers in this region that wants to be united, that could exist. And I'm just so fortunate that a gift of timing to be on the very initiating stages of it. So that's the best example I could give you, but it's a lot of things like that, between the smallest of business owners to the corporate entrepreneurs like Ann over here with Eastman Chemical, who I've heard her speak at events, and she's like one of those top 3% entrepreneurial people who own what they do in a large, 14,000 employees, $10 billion global company. That exists here on a per capita basis, I think, about as much as any place I've ever seen in America.
It's a really good answer. We're really glad you're here too. So, Tony, along those same lines, what role can ETSU's College of Business and Technology play in regional economic development?
I think there's a lot of facets to that the university can play, in the College of Business and Technology in particular. I think what we've seen today is an example of that. I think we can be a convener. We can bring people together to have discussions. And if you will, we can play the role. I use this expression a lot in talking with people. We can be Switzerland, because we're not anyone's competitor, and potentially we're a partner with everyone. And so I think we can embrace that role and try to engage the community in more dialogue and more discussion to try and move things forward. But I think clearly the biggest thing that we have to offer is our people. People in terms of faculty that work for the university, who have expertise in areas that are highly relevant in the community, making them more available for businesses or individuals that have questions. They want to run an idea by someone. They want perhaps some research on a particular topic. Faculty can be available and want to be available. It's about figuring out ways to make those connections. And that's something that we really want to do a lot more as a college, and open those lines of dialogue. But clearly, the biggest thing that we have to offer as a college, and more broadly as a university, comes from our students and our graduates. When I talk to students, the vast majority of them say, I want to live in the Appalachian Highlands, I want to make my home here, and they envision spending their career in this area and then someday retiring here. That's their vision, that's their goal. But what's going to enable that to happen is they're going to have good jobs in the area to keep them here. And the unfortunate reality is many of our students find that to find the kind of job that they want, they have to move out of the area. Now, the good news is many of them eventually do make their way back home, but we have, if you will, a brain drain in this area where some of our best and brightest students are leaving, not because they want to, but because the circumstances have conspired to force them to do that. So if we as a college, if we as a university can engage in partnerships and can facilitate businesses coming into the area, businesses that are here becoming more prosperous, we can keep our best people here in the community. And that's to all of our tremendous benefit. I think the key is, because we're non-competitors, we can truly establish those relationships that are mutually beneficial. We can put our expertise and we can put our resources into a partnership. We can get other organizations to put their resources into a partnership, and we can truly establish those win-win relationships that are going to pay dividends for the region. But I think the reality is we have to start being very purposeful about that. It won't just happen. We can't wish and all of a sudden change the dynamic. We have to engage in specific actions to make that happen. And what I'm here today to tell this group, and what I want to bring this message to other groups and anyone who will listen to me, is if you have something where we can partner with you, if you have something where we can help create something in this region, we absolutely want to do that. you know, we have built a number of partnerships that we're very, very proud of, but there's so much more work that can be done and that we want to do with partners all throughout the Appalachian Highlands. So that's the practical take that I have of economics. Half of what people talked about today kind of went over my head, I have to confess, but I think the theme of trying to unite the community around moving the region forward economically is something that I would think that all of us could agree on.
And I haven't worked with you long, but Tony is very intentional about getting out and connecting with people and moving those relationships forward. So we are grateful for that. Scott, as you look into the future, what are your hopes and goals for this region, both in terms of your businesses and just the broader region as a whole?
Well, that we build more houses, for sure. And we do have a construction and development company, and we're going to start building some cabins up in some property in Bristol, Tennessee. I want to see it continue to grow with great people. And I want to see the people who are migrating here. We moved into a neighborhood up on Lake Watauga 4 years ago, and there was like 6 permanent residents and a bunch of lakefront lots that we should have bought for sale for less than half of what the last one sold for this past year. And now it's almost full. But it's not one of those situations, and some of them are from California, some of them are from Illinois, some of them are from the Northeast, and they're all really good people. It's not one of these things where don't bring your this and do bring your that. I'm glad they came, and they felt like it was affordable, and they all say the same thing, how they love how welcoming Northeast Tennessee is. And I see them quickly embracing that deep sense of personal responsibility and pride and being somewhat self-reliant. And this would be a terrible way to say it, but in Texas, a lot of people love Texas because everybody kind of wants to be a cowboy. I've owned a rodeo production company, and I watched an impact that made on a beer distributorship we owned. And everybody that worked at the beer distributorship in Western North Carolina, none of them were cowboys, but all of a sudden we're doing rodeos, and they're all cowboys. And I think a lot of us want to be a little bit like a Texas cowboy. Tennessee's got that same kind of magic. A lot of people kind of want to be a little bit of whatever Tennessee is. And it's really neat to watch the people coming in that I think we impact them greatly quickly. So I just want to see that continue happening, and that we not try to become, look at what Asheville is or was. We need to be the best Northeast Tennessee, Appalachian Highlander group of people and businesses and employees and career-minded educators that we can be, because between our lakes, our rivers, our mountains, our 4 seasons, our industry background. I mean, this is the number 3 VA in America, size-wise. Ballard's amazing. What Alan Levine has done, and new additions to that team that are in the room. We have such a great foundation with a large university partner that's very intentional and very serious. He's a humble man, but one of the best programs at UT. ETU, when we have such great public health and all the things that are seen so prevalently. But you just recently created the Blue Cross Blue Shield program that guarantees, 50 or 51 students in that program every year? And it guarantees every one of them has a guaranteed job. And it's a good job. They are allowed to go get a different job if they want to, but they're guaranteed a job as a part of an educational program that Dean Federici and some of his team helped create in technology, with a very large company that needed the help. So the team's here to partner and do things, and we're the volunteer state, and I think that's what volunteers do. They figure out ways to partner together to make better things happen.
Tony, you mentioned partnerships previously. What kind of opportunities do you envision, and how do we go about achieving those?
Yeah, I go back to partnerships and engagement, and I think the key is it's not one size fits all. Scott just alluded to a partnership that we built with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee, which is one of the state's largest employers, one of, a company that is a household name, not just in Tennessee, but across the country. And we built a partnership with them that's creating tremendous opportunities for students but it's also addressing real business need that they had. And when you sit down and you work through all the finances of it, you realize that everybody is winning, but most notably the students are. That's a large partnership, but we have other kinds of partnerships that we're driving in our college. We have students that are studying entrepreneurship, that are developing ideas for small businesses. We have students that are taking classes where they go out and work with small businesses to help answer business questions and help those businesses develop. I'm really excited that here in about a week or so, I'm going to get to take a trip. Unfortunately, not in the immediate region, but our digital media department at the college has formed a partnership with a children's hospital to develop virtual reality and augmented reality training resources that this children's hospital is using to train nurses and to train parents of children that have certain kinds of needs so that they can effectively care for those children. It's a project that's being driven by our faculty, but the work is being done by students. The students are getting great practical experience, and they're creating a resource that's going to drive tremendous value for that organization. So it can be small. It can be an individual student doing an internship at a company and getting the benefit from that. Or it could be a flagship partnership between large organizations. You know, we're open to all of that. I think the key in all of it is, for it to be sustainable, it has to be built on mutual benefit. And I think that while we have a lot of partnerships here in the Appalachian Highlands region that we are proud of, every time I have to get in my car and drive out of the region to meet with a partner, I think how much more wonderful would it be if that drive was just across town as opposed to a few hours away. So we want to and are open to partnerships that look very, very different. And I would say absolutely nothing is out of the realm of possibilities. I love it when people come to me with an idea and they start with, I don't think this is possible, but, because I take that as a real challenge. And so that's what I would throw out to all of you that are here today and others that you know of. If you think there's even a possibility of some kind of partnership or some kind of engagement, we would love to have that discussion with you. The other piece that I would add to that is students today look for jobs very differently than students did when I graduated from college. And I think it's probably true for most of you, the dynamic probably has changed as well. Students right now have an increased sense of purpose and wanting to make their mark in the world. And they're looking for organizations that are reflective of their values and organizations that they can feel comfortable working with. So while we still do career fairs and we still encourage those kinds of quick transactional interactions between businesses and our students, what we see much more powerful is when businesses will engage with students in some kind of ongoing dialogue. When a student does an internship with a company and they like the things that they see, and then they go on and want to work with that organization. Or people from the community that come to our classes and talk with our students. And that's something that I would throw out to all of you that are here today about something that you might be interested in. We have a tremendous diversity of programs in our college, but students love to hear from professionals from the community. Anka talked about her financial literacy course. We have courses in professionalism in the college. We have courses in just about any business topic that you can think of. And when people from the community come to the classroom and talk to the students, it doesn't have to be a formal lecture, it doesn't have to be PowerPoint slides and graphs and charts. It can just be talking about your career and what you have done and the experience that you have had, and building that relationship. And if you will, being a little bit vulnerable, being willing to stand in front of students and say, okay, ask me your questions and I'll answer them for you. Students see that, and that resonates with them. And I've had students before, I can think of one conversation I had in the last month with a student that said that they were planning to go work for a particular company, but they weren't necessarily really sold on that opportunity. And someone came and was a guest speaker in one of her classes, and they really liked what that person had to say about their job and their company and the things that were going on. And they talked with that particular individual after the class session was over, and that person is now pivoted in their choice of where they want to go to work. They're going to go to work for that company. Students today want that interaction, and it doesn't have to be something that you spend a lot of time working on and you have to develop a thesis and 87 great points. Just your willingness to come to campus and be with the students and talk with them is going to make a huge influence on the decisions that they make. And I dare say you'll find it pretty fulfilling as well. So partnerships can be everything from us talking to companies to individuals talking with us about their willingness to come to campus and engage with our students. I think it's another example of the kinds of things that we can do that ultimately are in all of our best interests in the area of partnerships.
And Scott is a great example of someone that's come and engaged with the students. And so Scott, at the university level and then within CBAT, you've been involved in a lot of partnerships and different organizations on campus. Can you just share a little bit about those and what you've seen come from them? So,
Well, the university is just so open-minded about the dynamic we all know exists. And probably another one of these economic problems, the billions and billions of dollars that are in the aggressive student lending program where education costs have gone like that, and job capabilities might have kind of gone like this. And we got the highest percentage of 26-year-olds living at home with mom and dad that we've ever had in our country's history. That's a problem, but that's an opportunity for entrepreneurs because they see things. So a study was done a few years ago that categorized universities as surviving, thriving, or struggling, surviving, or thriving. And ETSU was about 300 of 3,000, I guess, universities across the country. ETSU wasn't in the study. East Carolina University was, and I felt like they were very similar universities in their structures. And ETSU would have been, I believe, in the thriving type potentiality. So the reason why I felt like was because of these partnership possibilities. And we've got partnerships with the School of Sciences, a little bit with public health, and with CBAT. And I hate to admit it, I'd love to say, when you talk about we're brilliant, our business teams are full of brilliant people that know how to do brilliant things. I mean, we really just knocked on the door and asked, and the university was very welcoming and receptive and excited because they saw that, hey, we need to get better at helping students have jobs. We need to bring parents here for orientation and have those parents be excited about what we're going to teach their kids, so that their kids don't end up living back at home with mom and dad. And I mean, that's kind of common sense stuff. And I'll circle it back to a little bit better answer even to your previous question. What is in this area that makes it so exciting besides an anchor pin like a great university? And there's other good universities, great industry like Eastman Chemical or Ballard Health, and the smaller ones like our companies, economic development people. I see Clay Walker sitting there. I watched Lynn and Clay and others kind of jump into action when we looked to do things that we had never done before. And it was the volunteer state. They were hungry to help people. Whether you think of that as being something that you want to help somebody fix their flat tire on the side of the road. And I guarantee you that happens here every day in Northeast Tennessee. But I saw it across political spectrums, across economic development groups at the university, and we really just knocked on the door and said, hey, we're going to move some companies here. I heard these problems existed, Friday night lights between the cities and trying to develop things. And I thought, well, that's an opportunity to help create some synergies through Switzerland at the university. And I heard, I looked at the map and where we got these mountains on our northern border that kind of limits how we go north. Versus Greenville, South Carolina, where I've lived, they've got 85 and 26 intersecting. They're not limited anywhere. They can spread all in a circle. Charlotte's that way, Asheville to a degree is that way, Knoxville's that way. We're a little bit blockaded off by the mountains, so that doesn't help us. But the Tri-Cities, Bristol, Johnson City, Kingsport, they've all built their own infrastructure, and that infrastructure is growing towards each other, which actually makes it easier to develop the interior of those Tri-Cities as people, because one of the prohibiting elements to development is not having the infrastructure. When cities want to grow and annex, well, we don't want to have to put sewer in and roads in. But this region's been kind of growing towards the middle for a long, long time. So there's a lot more infrastructure assets that can be capitalized on. I see how this area is just poised to support the growth. Now, some of the dynamics with interest rates and not enough housing and all those things will make it more challenging. But if the people aren't open and receptive and partnership minded, and the universities aren't, and if you don't have that culture, it doesn't matter maybe if you have the other stuff, because it's so hard. We've got one company headquartered in Columbus, Ohio, and I love Ohio State University. All our employees that are there went there and they're rabid fans. But try to knock on Ohio State's door and see how welcoming they are to what you might can help them do. And unless you're a Fortune 50 company, try to knock on their door and see. Versus ETSU would welcome the smallest of entrepreneur here to the largest. And we were able to partner with them and create a brewing and distillation sciences program that we intend to help become a major in the next couple of years. I watched Jim Harlan come in here as a chair of excellence from Eastman Chemical and help you guys create a supply chain major in 2 years. That's phenomenal. Universities don't move that fast in general. And it's not the big that eat the small, it's the fast that eat the slow. And I think ETSU is poised to be faster than other places. So we partnered in a couple of areas. That the Brewing and Distillation Science was the biggest. We came in and helped set up the CBAT Leadership Academy that's got a second graduation or third tomorrow night. And with some of the top students, rising seniors and graduate students at the university. And that was really to support Jim Harlan, whose heart about setting a legacy up is so good. The university, when you make a pick like a Jim Harlan, it's okay to make a pick like all the doctors we heard from today too, but there's a very different mindset, and all of a sudden you're getting intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs who start looking at the university from a different lens that's not as siloed, and George Bernard Shaw said, you see things that are and you say, why? But I look at things and say, why not? And you got that in all levels, professors and others, but the partnerships are there to support. And I've seen a lot of others besides our companies do it. And I'll end saying this. The statistic that was up in one of the earliest slides about age demographics, and we're a little bit more of an older community. And my hat's off to the entrepreneurs, and public servants in here that are ladies. You are more mature at a younger age. I saw that in our daughter and our son. And I knew it about my wife and I, so I didn't have to see it. But that's kind of, I think, a scientific fact. But I looked at the highest earning range years for adults in America. For women, it's 10 years younger. It starts 10 years younger. For women, it's like 35 to 55. For men, it's 45 to 65. So let's just say it's 40 to 60. Well, we all know that's because we're smarter, we made more mistakes, we've done more stupid stuff. Hopefully we've got most of that behind us, and now we know how to do things right. Well, I look at Northeast Tennessee and I say we're a community that's more laden with the older group that's in their prime earning years, because we're wiser, we're smarter, we got more common sense, and we're not going to be quite as dumb about things. And I think that means the future's bright for us, because our intellectual firepower is in the peak of its earning years. And we got the leadership here. I see Jennifer Keller in the back, and tells them one of the biggest law firms in America, yes, I'll take that senior executive position, but I'm not moving to your headquarters. I'll fly wherever you need me to. Most big companies would say, no, we just can't have it that way. But that's the kind of intellectual firepower this community has in it, and they let her stay in the model mill and set up offices there here in the last year. this area it's got so much more firepower for volunteering, partnership, and intellectual growth than in 9 times in 12 years Daphne and I moved. I never, including when we moved away from Asheville back in 1999, which I love dearly. This area reminds me of Asheville 30 years ago. I've just never, and we looked at it everywhere we lived, and they were all good places. I've never felt better about the people in a place than I do this region.
Thank you. Also, Jim Harlan doesn't put equations like Bill Traynor does in his presentation, so Jim is, Jim's smart enough to not put equations. I'm looking at Bill because that was a very technical equation he had up, but, okay, last question to you both. So where do we go from here, from today on?
Well, we stay so busy with the things we're building because lead well, serve well is what the Leadership Academy says. And as we look to lead, we need to help the people that want to move here. We need to build the houses. We need to do all the things to solve the challenges that were presented today. We may not be able to impact the interest rates, but guess what? When interest rates go up and we can't convince Mr. Barrett to give us a lower rate on a bigger loan, landowners are going to sell their land. We bought a piece of land 3 days ago. We got them to underfinance it at 4%, or 3 weeks ago, at 4%. They wanted to take the cash and put it in Mr. Barrett's bank at a higher rate of earnings. There's a way to solve all the challenges we're talking about here, even if it may not be directly solving a challenge that's up to bigger government, the Federal Reserve, and people as brilliant as Mark is. There's a way to work around that to get to the solutions we need to grow. And this university is one of the biggest ones.
That's great. As I think about where we want to go from here, I'll say that in terms of the specific activities of our college, we want to have more events like that. I said that before, but we want to have more events like this, but then also focusing on other areas where we can have an impact as a college and where there are people that are interested in getting together. Supply chain issues have run as a theme throughout a lot of the presentations today. And so we've already started talking about a supply chain summit that we could have at some point in the near future. Really exciting things going on in the college in areas around technology. My hope is that this will be the first of an ongoing stream of regularly occurring events where we get the community together to have productive dialogues and plan the future together. I think the other thing, just real nuts and bolts oriented, is so after the event today, we're going to send everyone a survey, and we really want your feedback about the event today. We want to do this again, so we want to get it better. We will share the slides. If technology has cooperated, everything today has been recorded, so we'll have a video recording that we can share. But the big thing that's going to be a part of that survey is a question about, is there an opportunity for us to explore some kind of partnership or engagement? And so my request to all of you is to think about that individually, perhaps take that to your colleagues and those that you work with, and let's use this as a Kickstarter to conversations that we can have in weeks and months to come, because we want to partner with you to help build the region and to help move the discussion forward. Talk is great, and it's been great to get together in this room today and have a lot of discussion, but ultimately what's going to matter is what we actually do together. And that's what we want to facilitate as a college. So,
to give a specific example to it, because there's a lot of business leaders in this room. So we did it with the media company and the School of Media and Communications. We did it with Brewing and Distillation Sciences. The Leadership Academy is a little different. But we came here 4 years ago, felt like we lived here forever, but I heard leaders in this room talking about challenges, whether it was regionalism or it was workforce development. But I also heard that like 60+% of students that go to ETSU are from the greater region. and that 70-some% of them want to stay here but can't. I think it was just mentioned a little while ago. And we looked at that and said, well, then let's tell ETSU to build better workforce development programs partnered with industry and give students that take those classes a reason to stay here. And we'll get people who have jobs, so I won't have to deal with the problem of not having people to hire. And the university will attract parents to have their students come here because their kids will get jobs, not move back home. It just seemed like a common sense win-win to me. The question was, when we started knocking on the university's door, would they say yes and be open-minded, or would they say, what are you talking about? We don't do that. And this university said yes. So if you're an industry person in here, the thing to be doing is thinking about, how can I create a workforce development program in my industry with some silo or joining forces silos at East Tennessee State University, because they're going to at least listen to you. And if you help them come up with a good idea that's win-win, I think you're probably going to end up landing a program just like we have.
And the partnership with Blue Cross Blue Shield and the Blue Sky Institute is a perfect example of just that in the computing, and that falls within CVAT. And so having more of those
It
partnerships.
really is, and what we found is when you really get into the nuts and bolts of it, things that sometimes seem hard on the surface aren't as hard as you think once you get people in the room to have very candid discussions, and that's really the key. You can have a discussion where you're in a room for an hour and everybody's saying the things that you expect them to say, and you walk out and about all you can say is an hour's gone by, but you haven't really moved anything forward. But when you can get people together and have genuine discussions about, this is the specific business need that we have, well, then we can begin talking specifically about how we can orient educational programs to support that. And all of a sudden, a lot of the challenges that might have on the surface seemed to have been substantial erode away. And it becomes something that's very, very sustainable. But the key is moving beyond those initial surface discussions and really getting to the meat of the matter. And that's our heart. We want to have those discussions. We want to build those partnerships. And so that's why we've asked all of you to come here today. And hopefully you found it was time well spent.